We need lawmakers that really represent us, that are there to protect our families, our businesses, our freedoms, and just doing the basic fundamental things that our founding fathers wanted them to do. Guess what? We have somebody on this show that is getting ready to challenge Senator Mitt Romney in Utah. And I am so excited. And it's Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs. How exciting is this? That we finally have somebody who says, you know what? I'm willing to stand up to the establishment and call people out for their, I believe, non-conservative beliefs, especially when it comes to Senator Mitt Romney. I mean, from the great state of Massachusetts, not Utah, and who is obviously known all over America. Everybody knows who Mitt Romney is. He was elected, I think, mainly because of his name, and his family has been very powerful in politics and business in the United States. Obviously, a very important American family. But look, I think it's time somebody from Utah represent Utah in the Senate. And I really, truly believe that once you meet Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs, you're going to want him to be in the Senate. You're going to want him to represent your conservative values in the Senate. And he announced last week that he was running against, Senator Mitt Romney. It's been all the hub, in Utah. And now everybody's kind of waking up across the country and learning who this incredible man is. He stands for border security. He is against this kind of crazy wokeness being implemented in our federal government. He says, if you're a private business, you could do whatever you want. But remember, if you go woke, you go broke. So you got to take that responsibility for yourself. You're going to hear him talk about his platform in such a way that, I really believe that once you get a chance to meet him, it's just a microcosm of what the rest of the country feels. Look, it's not just about Utah. Utah is an incredible state, but Americans all across this nation, in this beautiful republic of ours, are sick and tired of government overreach. We are sick and tired of the debt that we are leaving our children and our grandchildren. We're sick and tired of, being told what we need to do, being watched by these crazy government bureaucracies that have now become more powerful than the people. And we need lawmakers that really represent us, that are there to protect our families, our businesses, our freedoms, and just doing the basic fundamental things that our founding fathers wanted them to do. Not getting involved in every aspect of our life, not being the federal government that decides to spend money, is completely upside down, is never held accountable, yet is willing to hire another 87,000 IRS agents to basically target Americans and small businesses and politicize, once again, the agency, which is the IRS, because they've already done that. They're just going to make it a lot easier. We need lawmakers that stand for our principles, that stand up for us. And this is why I brought Riverton Mayor Trent Staggs onto the show. Wait until you hear him. Wait until you hear him, because I promise you, he is going to stand for what you believe in, and he's willing to take on the big guns, which I call, the Mitt Romney, the Romney clan. He's willing to take that on. He's willing to be competitive in that primary battle in that deeply conservative state of Utah. And he's going to lay it out. He's going to lay everything out for you. Folks, what do I love to do when I'm not doing my podcast or running around New York City or on Sean's show or traveling the world? I love to garden. I love to take just a few moments to be in my garden with my family, planting trees, making it beautiful, making it my escape, like my little oasis, right? That's what I think of when I think of gardening. I think of building my own oasis, and it is so therapeutic. And fast-growing trees can let you do that. I'm telling you, if you're having like a stressful day or a stressful week, if you get outside and just plant and, grow these gorgeous trees and plants in your yard, you're going to feel so much better. And your family will too. Get away from the TV, get away from all these distractions. Just go spend some time in nature. And you can do that. You can breathe life into your backyard with fastgrowingtrees.com this spring. From shade to fresh fruit to privacy and natural beauty, let fastgrowingtrees.com help you plant your dream garden. And with their expert advice and fast and reliable shipping, it's like having a private gardener right at your fingertips, right in your computer, right? And with Fast Growing Trees, 30-day alive and thrive guarantee. And I'm going to put it on my Instagram. So for those of you who follow me at scarterdc on Instagram, you'll see what I'm doing. You'll see my yard. We'll work on it together, you and I. But I'm going to show you because this is how much I believe in this company. And they have a 30-day alive and thrive guarantee. Everything will look great, fresh out of the box. Join over 1.5 million happy Fast Growing Tree customers. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter now to get 15% off your entire order. Get 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter. That's fastgrowingtrees.com/Carter. So grateful to have you on, Mayor Trent Staggs. And even more importantly, I am so grateful that you are running against Senator Mitt Romney. and I'm just saying this as a regular citizen. I just think he needs to feel a little bit of the heat. And you're from the great state of Utah, and I'm very grateful to have you here on the Sara Carter Show. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invitation. And I am from this state. And that's one of the main points, I think, of differentiation right out of the gate. As we know, Mitt moved to Utah a few years ago to run for Senate. I like to say I'm authentically Utahn. I've been here from elementary school to graduate school. This is where I've attended my schooling. I've raised my family here. I've operated businesses here. I just took a company public, got listed on NASDAQ last year. And I've been obviously leading my community of Riverton for the past 10 years in elected office. This is home, and we need a senator that is going to really represent this great state in a conservative fashion that really represents what the people's, how the people are here in the state.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I want to talk about that because being mayor of Riverton, and especially for 10 years, to me, in my opinion, very much qualifies you as a candidate to represent the people of Utah. How do you feel? And maybe you can explain this, and I'm giving you the leeway to explain it, but how do you think you would represent the people of Utah better than what we have seen from Senator Mitt Romney? Well, obviously, a lot of people don't know that he isn't from Utah. A lot of people think he is, but he is not from Utah. But how do you think you would represent the people different, your constituents, than Mitt Romney?
Yeah. Well, I know the state. I've grown up in it. I've been here essentially my entire life. And as a mayor, mayors, I think, are uniquely positioned. We're on the front lines, really, of governmental overreach. I've been fighting it for 10 years, whether it be at the federal level, at the state, or the county. And so having those relationships with other mayors and local elected officials, we've already got quite a few that have lined up to endorse. Because they realize I understand what it's like for them to try to lead on the front lines. I understand what that's like, and I understand this state, and we'll take that back to Washington D.C. and represent them accordingly. So I think that's an area too that really sets me apart.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. What are the reasons you're joining this race? I mean, what do you see as Mitt Romney is failing on, Senator Mitt Romney, and what do you want to take with you? I mean, like if I were to go to run for the Senate, my three most important issues. But first, where has Mitt Romney failed, and where do you think you can take it and move that up?
Yeah, well, in my launch video that I think is now approaching 1 million views or so, we outlined that where I feel Mitt Romney has failed. I have to be honest, I supported him, back in 2012 for president, and even in 2018 when he ran, I thought that he would have that name ID, that kind of celebrity gravitas, if you will, that would represent Utah well, could get things done. And he had a video that he put out there 5 years ago that said, if you elect me as your senator, I will end illegal immigration. I'll put us on a pathway to a balanced budget. I'll stop federal overreach, and I'll appoint conservative justices to the court. Not only has he not done those things, he's done just the opposite. He's voted for trillions more in spending. We're now at 32 trillion in debt. And he's even just the other week when our other senator, Mike Lee, authored a letter that had 42 other Republicans sign on that said to the president, we are not going to raise the debt ceiling unless we get substantial spending cuts. Mitt Romney was conspicuously absent from that. He didn't even sign that letter. Mitch McConnell did, and Mitt Romney wouldn't even bother. So if somebody is truly wants to put us on a pathway to a balanced budget and stop federal overreach and spending, I think he would have actually put his name on that letter. Sadly, he didn't. He's done nothing to end illegal immigration. In fact, he was one of the few Republicans that actually supported this Homeland Secretary Mayorkas, who I think is beyond incompetent. And the border, as you know, is a complete disaster and mess. And then with respect to judges, he was one of just a couple of Republicans that voted for this most recent radical Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson. And it's that those are just a few examples of where I think he's fallen short.
Well, he's certainly a moderate. I mean, he even has described himself as a moderate, maybe even leaning more to the left. He's from Massachusetts. He definitely brings that attitude and that style with him to the great state of Utah and right up to the Senate. You know, one of the most important issues I think that we are facing right now, the crisis at our U.S. southern border. We have nearly 2,000 miles of southern border with Mexico. It is porous. I've been down there for nearly 20 years back and forth. I've never seen it this bad. I was just speaking with Michael Yon, who is now in Panama, about the situation. And they're looking at numbers like we've never seen before. In fact, there are some estimates right now that 300,000 people per month plus could be heading towards the United States of America. And not only that, we have fentanyl crisis in our country and national security issues. I could go on and on and on. So Texas it's a border state, but like many people are saying now, every state is a border state. So I'm stunned at Senator Romney's position when it comes to the U.S. border and Mayorkas.
Yeah, no, I am too. And like you said, almost every state now is a border state. As a mayor, I've seen buses come and drop people off at my city park. The situation there is completely out of control. And worse still is, as you indicated, the fentanyl crisis. We had over 100,000 Americans die just in the last year. The drugs coming through, the exploitation of people. It just breaks your heart what's going on down there, and why Senator Romney would be supportive of Secretary Mayorkas and this do-nothing president. I mean, Nate Silver's 538 has indicated that that Romney has voted 60% or more of the time with President Biden and advancing his agenda. So we absolutely have to get something done at that border.
Do you think that the people of Utah, just like the rest of America, I see Utah as kind of a microcosm, right, of the rest of our country. And I do when I go into other places like Riverton's, small town feel, and people care about one another. When I go to Wisconsin or I travel, to small towns in Pennsylvania, do you think there's kind of a waking up moment, an awakening in America where people are like, wait a minute, what is really going on here? Even to the point where we're seeing independents shift in their thinking. It's no longer just Democrat versus Republican. I feel like it's radical left versus sanity. You know what I mean? Radical left versus sanity right now, because it's not the normal debates that our parents used to have.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, 100%. The people of Utah, and I think largely, across America, we're very kind-hearted. And we've allowed that. We're so kind-hearted that it's become controversial to enforce our own immigration laws. I mean, every country manages migration and also travel of non-citizens, but it's become somehow controversial to do so. And in the state of Utah, if you look at a lot of our pioneer history and ancestry, the persecution that happened then, and just so much of our culture goes on foreign missions, and we have, I think, a great empathy towards other races and cultures, and we want to be very helpful. But I think you're right. This is a bit of a wake-up call that folks are now seeing, just the sheer numbers coming across, and the drugs and all the other issues that this we can't. We have to enforce our own borders. If we don't, we just don't have a country. And I think that's the stated agenda and the goal of the radical left, is that we're not going to wait. We're just going to bring as many people in. Perhaps that is going to change the demographics permanently in terms of the voting, for the foreseeable future. And it's sad because they don't care at all about the security of this country.
I absolutely agree with you. And I'll take it even one step further, because you're very right about the people of Utah. They're very kind, very open, want to be welcoming to those, which is, I think, pretty much all of America. I think what's happened is that we're seeing, and this is the way I think you combat that. And I think people understand this. Look, my mother was an immigrant. She came from Cuba in the 1960s on the Johnson Freedom flights. I speak Spanish, was like a first language for me with my mom and dad. I love the people that I meet when I travel to Central America or along the US-Mexico border, and I hear their stories. But I think the way to combat that, and I keep telling everyone, I know all of you out there that listen to this podcast understand this, is the fact that people are being trafficked by some of the most nefarious groups on our planet. These children are being abused, women are being abused, even some men are being abused, and we are perpetuating that behavior. Our government's policy is supplying the cartels and human traffickers with billions of dollars in contraband and in modern day slavery. I've never been able to understand or comprehend why anybody would want to allow this to continue if they actually knew the truth.
No, well said. That's exactly what's happening, and it's absolutely heartbreaking to see that type of abuse happening in the hands of, like, as you said, the most nefarious groups and organizations on the planet, just real scum. And we need to have a border wall. We need to be able to enforce it. I mean, as it's been said, we got to have a wall, but have a nice door and a process by which people can come in and out of this country. I think most people are definitely in support of that.
Allegiance Gold. So great. Love Allegiance Gold. Thank you so much for being a sponsor of the Sara Carter Show. And right now you get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. My friends at Allegiance Gold can help you protect your IRA, your 401k with physical gold and silver, or have it delivered securely right to your front door. You just can't beat that. Right now, get $5,000 of free silver on a qualifying purchase when you tell them that Sara sent you. So don't wait, call or click today, 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA, S-A-R-A, or go to protectwithsara.com. We can't control the Biden administration, folks, but we can prepare. That's 877-702-7272. That's 877-702-SARA or protectwithsara.com. Hey, Patriots, we must wrestle our government back from the America Last swamp creatures that are squatting in our institutions and refuse to leave. Join me in that fight. Subscribe to me on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. Thank you so much. It really does make a difference. How do you feel about this whole woke industry, that what we're seeing with Disney, what we're seeing, even with like Kate Spade, Bud Light, and, this idea of wokeness in our military? I mean, that's going to be a big issue to deal with in the Senate, because we're seeing such a transformation of our nation and such a transformation in our policies. How would you handle that?
Yeah, no, great. At my website, trentstaggs.com, there's an issues section, and this is one of those issues. We were talking earlier, you had asked what maybe some of my best, my focuses would be, and it's number one, smaller government, it's safer families, and a stronger economy. And I think I can speak credibly to all three, having shrunk the size, scope of government here in Utah in our community, and actually cut taxes. Safer families, and again, stronger economy. Immigration And this wokeism, I think, really go hand in hand with safer families and a stronger economy. I have on my website that there needs to be a wall of separation, I say, between woke and state. That this wokeism is really, it's a religion, it's an ideology for so many folks. It has no business in government, it has no business being advocated or endorsed by the federal government as it has been in the Biden administration. Companies themselves, if they want to try to enact these policies in a free market system,
Right.
so be it. And we see with the Bud Light examples and others, you go woke, you go broke. I think that's what people are seeing. But with respect to the government, these policies are just insidious. They cannot be involved. And I say on the site, and I'll say it here, that I will be woke's worst enemy if elected.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And in our school systems, right? In our children's public education system, I mean, I think we saw such an awakening, and I bring it up all the time, but in Loudoun County, remember that in Virginia with that's what got Governor Youngkin elected, was when he, kind of stepped in. And of course, the left, the imbeciles themselves bringing up this radical left, that parents don't have the right to be involved in their children's education. I think that immediately set parents off. And even our independent parents, we saw a lot of Democrat parents who identified as Democrats turn around and vote for Governor Youngkin because it was about common sense and, more importantly, about protecting children. How do you feel about the state of education in the United States?
Yeah, I have that as one of my 9 issues as well on my website at trentstaggs.com. But the state of education, first of all, I believe there shouldn't be a Department of Education. I think that ought to be absconded, gotten rid of immediately. They have about $174 billion in the budget right now. They're spending more than $80 billion a year. They put so many strings on states. Like Utah, we only have about 7% of our education budget that comes from the federal government. So I think I would like to, at least here, get away from the federal Department of Education altogether. But you're right, there's a problem with schools. I actually just recently, it was back in April, that I spoke out at the school board meeting. The school board offices have their headquarters in my community of 50,000 folks. And I spoke out against books that clearly crossed the line. We had just recently passed some legislation here in the state of Utah that is quite objective. If there are depictions or illustrations of certain things, that is deemed inappropriate. It's pornographic in nature. It is inappropriate for children. And I went to speak out against that after hearing from many parents in my community and from parent organizations that have actually identified these books, that there were well over 100 still in school libraries that are just very inappropriate for minors. And so much of it just stems back to this woke culture that we really need to destroy.
And you're absolutely right. I couldn't even believe it. I won't even read some of those excerpts on my podcast because it's so bad. I couldn't even imagine that some of these books were being checked out by first graders or second graders. The descriptions were so pornographic in some of them that I never even read that in an adult book. I was thinking, like, is this real? Is this in our schools? And that's what I'm talking about when I think of everything being upside down. And that's something that Senator Romney, I mean, this is bizarre here because, here's this, millionaire, he's religious man, he's got a big family.
Right.
You would think that he would be so outspoken against all of these issues that you're talking about, but he's really not. He kind of just wades right in the middle and doesn't really, and from what I've seen, make a definitive position on these issues. And you really have done that. Have you noticed that more people are saying, hey, wait a minute, who is this? Who is Mayor Trent Staggs? What can we do to support him? Are you seeing a lot more of that in your community?
A lot, quite a bit. And you're right. Unfortunately, Senator Romney's been rather silent with these issues.
Yeah.
He just, although did march with Black Lives Matter, even, he'll come out on certain sides of issues that are quite quizzical. And so
Well, and by the way, we have to say he marched with Black Lives Matters, and they are getting busted over and over again because they have like ripped off the people who have donated to their 501c4 and C3. They've been pocketing money, buying $1 million homes, paying these huge salaries. They're falling apart right now. They're absolutely sinking. And even some of their executives have been fired from positions that they had been hired in Hollywood to represent kind of this BLM. So it's always been a scam. It was a scam from the beginning. Of course, Mitt Romney was marching with them. A lot of senior lawmakers jumped on that bandwagon, but without doing their own investigations or seeing these groups for what they really are.
No, and unfortunately, and yeah, you're spot on. It's so many people have been taken advantage of. I think with that organization in particular. But to answer the question, yes, community members have come out, many Utahns, and said, "Thank you so much for your leadership." And that's what people are craving. I'm finding they want bold, conservative leadership. They don't want the wokeism. They're tired of that infiltration into their daily lives. They're tired of the government and
Right.
the burden that it places on so many people. We've got to get the government out of people's lives. I see it with respect to taxation. We've got more revenue coming into the treasury than we've ever had right now, and
Right. Let's talk about the debt ceiling and what's going on in our country and this. I mean, we are trillions in debt, right? And we are like our economy. I mean, we're looking at a possible recession coming up around the corner. I mean, we're hearing rumblings of that over and over and over again. And not that we don't need it. I mean, I've talked to people that have said, we're long overdue. But the thing is, Americans are very concerned about what that future holds. And they're worried about another kind of black swan event, like a COVID-19 outbreak or something far worse. We live in very precarious times.
Absolutely. And Sarah, I got to tell you, that's probably the number one reason, my motivation for getting into this race is my own kids. I have a 13-year-old son and an 11-year-old daughter, and I'm very, very concerned about the country that they're going to inherit. I mean, we've been blessed. I've had some success in the business world. I took a company public last year. We have some financial resources, but I'm very concerned. I want my children to have the same opportunities that I had, and not just my children, but others across this great country and successive and future generations. And the track we're going down right now, it is not happening. We are ruining ourselves economically with the debt that we have. And I think that's the height of immorality too, to place this debt on my kids, on future generations, and the way that it's happening. It's just, it's unbelievable. And we've got to get in there. We've got to fight back on spending, on taxation. I talk about that with respect to taxes. When the federal taxes were first imposed, the income tax back in 1913, did you realize you had $3,000 you were exempt, which today is the equivalent of $91,000. You pay zero tax at 91 grand as a single filer, and the top marginal rate was at 7%. And you needed to make the equivalent of $15 million today to be at 7%. What's happened over the last 110 years since the income tax was instituted that's required 25 to 30% on average of all of our income? That's what the government is extracting from folks.
Look at the cost of groceries right now. I mean, just going to the grocery store. I'm a regular everyday American. I go to the grocery store. I see the price too. It's being charged when you buy eggs, when you buy milk, the price of the taxes that we're paying. I mean, it is a very different nation than what I believe our founding fathers set out to do with this.
They fought a revolution over a fraction of the taxes.
Right.
That are now imposed on us. And yes, the spending has gotten out of control. That's the direct result of inflation. Why we have.
How do we ever get that back in control? Do we?
We have to send people to Washington. This is how we get it under control. If you and I have the courage and the majority of Americans that send people back to D.C. that say enough is enough. We're not going to do this anymore. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. I heard Speaker McCarthy even say that this morning in discussions on this debt deal. And so we have to send people back there that get it, that understand limited government, that the government only has certain things it should be doing, Article 1, Section 8 for the most part, that's in the purview of Congress. We can't be layering on so much spending, entitlements. We've got to stop with the regulatory framework. Um, it's said that there's about a $2 to $4 trillion drag on our economy because of all the regulatory state that's imposed. And I talk to business owners here who say, Trent, they've used the term too big to fail. I feel like now we're too small to succeed. The small business person can't succeed because of all the regulations that have been placed on business. It's just strangling folks. We've got to get that out of the way, get government out of the way so that we can succeed and get this economy back on track.
I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And I have a few more questions before I let you go, because I know I'm keeping you much longer than you probably expected. But what is the image of the America you want your children and my child and everyone's child to grow up in? What is that image? What do you see?
It's a great question. No, and I've enjoyed our conversation here. It's a meritocracy, right? That's the idea of freedom of America, that we are free. We are born with those inalienable rights. They come from God. They don't come from government. We do not get our, even JFK said back in his inaugural address that this doesn't come from the generosity of the state. It comes from the hand of God. And that's where our rights come from, and that we are free to go about our own industry, our own initiative, and make whatever life we want for ourselves. It doesn't matter what your color is, your gender, your sexual orientation. I don't care. It's a meritocracy. This is America. If you've got a vision, you want to do something, you have the freedom to be able to do that and make that come true here in this great country.
That's beautiful. And, that really requires lawmakers that have the vision that you have in order to make that succeed, to limit the powers of these bureaucracies that have been weaponized and have really stolen what I believe are essential rights that are based in the foundation of our principles in our Constitution, whether that's the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Second Amendment. Our founding fathers really understood what it took to make this great nation and this beautiful experiment work. I think only we can destroy that. Like I said, I had a few more questions. Mitt Romney has a universal name. Everybody kind of knows his name. Unfortunately, we all know his name. And but how will you overcome that? How will we get, Trent Staggs out there, get your name out there, get people knowing who you are? What can we do and what can you do, and how are you going to overcome that to get your name out there so that everybody in the state of Utah has an opportunity to vote for you?
A great question. Mitt Romney's a bit of a known commodity, and that's I think his numbers are not so great across the country. In this state, he's still underwater, I believe, what we're looking at, and just talking to people anecdotally. But it is going to require support. And at TrentStaggs.com, to the extent people can donate, they can join the fight and volunteer. I've already had thousands of people reach out. We've had hundreds of people that want to volunteer. We're building a coalition. As a mayor, again, with all those other mayors I know across the state, we have over 240 municipalities, little cities and towns, all across our great state. Riverton at 50,000, because we're a state of over 3 million, it's actually a top 20 state by population. We're number 18, I think, most populous. And I've got great relationships with mayors and county commissioners and others all throughout the state. So we're building that coalition right now. Already have scores of elected officials that are endorsing. I'll be crossing all 29 counties, or traveling through all 29 counties in this great state, starting right now. We're about a year out from our Republican state convention. I'm a big believer in our state, our caucus and convention system that we have here in Utah. And so we're reaching out to delegates, we're reaching out all across the state to make that happen. But yes, we're going to need a lot of support, financial and volunteer efforts to really get this done and finally put a conservative and a conservative fighter who's pushed back on federal overreach, on governmental overreach, demonstrated that for 10 years now in elected office. We've got to have that type of person in D.C. I believe I'm that type of person, and really encouraged by all the support thus far.
Well, very excited for you. One more time, give everyone that website and I'll make sure we get it out there.
Thank you. Yeah, TrentStaggs.com, just at TrentStaggs.com.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Thank you so much for being such a great patriot, such a great American. And I wish you all the best with this race in Utah. And I look forward to bringing you back on the show as you progress in your race against Mitt Romney. Well, I look forward to bringing Mayor Staggs back on the show. It was so wonderful and refreshing to hear a lawmaker that actually wants to do what his constituents want him to do. And wow, 10 years as mayor, this guy is ready to go. He's ready to take on Capitol Hill and he's ready to be a part of the Senate. Watch out. I think he has a huge future ahead in politics in the United States. Folks, follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on Twitter at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram, where I'll be planting my fast growing trees at S Carter DC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless Utah, and God bless the great state of Texas.